My grandson turned 20, and his mother decided I wasn't worth a seat at the table. My son sent me a text like I was hired help. "Clean up, we'll be back late with guests." That's when I realized I'd been living in someone else's house for 8 years, pretending it was still home. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The text came at 3:30 on a Tuesday afternoon. I was folding Marcus's laundry, yes, at 67. I was still doing my grown son's washing because Jennifer claimed she was too busy with Tyler's college preparations. The irony wasn't lost on me that Tyler was apparently too busy celebrating his 20th birthday to include the grandmother who'd helped raise him. Mom, taking everyone to Chez Laurent for Tyler's birthday. "Clean up, we'll be back late with guests. Thanks." Like I was the cleaning lady. I stared at that message for a full 5 minutes, sitting on the edge of my bed in what used to be my bedroom before Jennifer decided it would make a better guest room. I'd been sleeping in the basement guest room for 2 years now, ever since Jennifer's mother started visiting for weeks at a time. Chez Laurent, the restaurant where Marcus proposed to Jennifer 20 years ago, the place where we'd celebrated every major milestone in Tyler's life, his high school graduation, his acceptance to Ohio State, his first job, every milestone except this one, apparently. I walked to my small basement window and looked up at ground level, watching the neighbors' cats prowl through my former garden. Jennifer had torn out my roses last spring, said they were too much maintenance. She'd replaced them with decorative rocks. Very modern, she'd said, very convenient. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Tyler, texting from upstairs. "Sorry, Grandma, Mom made plans weeks ago and forgot to mention it. Rain check?" Rain check. Like spending time with his grandmother was a tennis match that could be rescheduled when the weather improved. I climbed the basement stairs to the main floor of the house that had been mine for 25 years. The house where I'd raised Marcus after his father died of cancer when he was 14. The house I'd let them move into temporarily when Tyler was 4 and they were going through their rough patch. The house that somehow became theirs while I became the inconvenient relative sleeping in the basement. The living room smelled like Jennifer's vanilla candles and her expensive perfume. My old furniture had been relegated to the basement, replaced with her stark white couches that no one was allowed to eat on. The family photos on the mantel were all of her side of the family now. The only picture of me was from Marcus's wedding, barely visible in the background. I heard Marcus's BMW pull into the driveway, my driveway, legally speaking, though I'd stopped mentioning that years ago. Through the window, I watched them pile out, laughing and animated. Marcus in his best suit, Jennifer in a dress that probably cost more than my monthly Social Security check. Tyler looking handsome and happy. They were beautiful together, my family. Beautiful and complete without me. They didn't even glance toward the house as they drove away in Jennifer's SUV, heading to a celebration I'd helped plan for 19 years before this one. I stood at that window until their taillights disappeared around the corner, and something inside me shifted. Something that had been cracking for years finally broke clean through. I walked to my basement room and pulled out the suitcase I hadn't used since my last visit to my sister in Phoenix. Then I stopped, struck by a thought that made me smile for the first time in weeks. They wanted me to clean up? I'd give them exactly what they asked for. The beauty of being invisible for 8 years is that you learn everyone's patterns without them noticing yours. Marcus would drink too much at fancy dinners. He always did when he was trying to impress Jennifer's friends. Jennifer would insist they bring people back to show off their renovated house. Tyler would go along with whatever his parents suggested because confrontation wasn't worth the drama. They'd be gone until at least midnight, maybe later. Plenty of time for what I needed to do. I'd been saving money for 3 years, ever since I realized my welcome had expired. Robert's life insurance had paid off the house when he died, and I'd been careful with the small inheritance from my mother 2 years ago. While Marcus assumed I was living on Social Security alone, I'd quietly tucked away money every month, $4,200. 42. Enough for a new start if I was careful. I started with my clothes, folding everything neatly into 2 suitcases. 8 years of living in one room teaches you to pack efficiently. My photo albums went into a small box. Along with my mother's jewelry and the few pieces of my grandmother's china Jennifer hadn't accidentally broken or donated. In the back of my closet, behind the winter coats I rarely needed anymore, I found the box I'd been avoiding for months. Robert's things, my husband's watch, his reading glasses, the leather journal where he'd kept track of his woodworking projects. I'd moved these items from hiding place to hiding place, unable to let go but unwilling to display them where Jennifer might decide they didn't fit her aesthetic. I held Robert's journal for a moment, remembering how he'd sit at the kitchen table every evening, updating his project notes in careful handwriting. He'd been so methodical, so practical. What would he think of what I'd become? What would he think of what I was about to do? "You'd tell me it was about time," I whispered to the empty room. The hardest part was the kitchen. I'd been cooking for this family for 8 years, keeping track of everyone's preferences, making sure Tyler had his favorite cookies for school, preparing Marcus's lunches the way he liked them. The spice rack was mine, accumulated over decades of cooking. The good knives were wedding gifts from my marriage to Robert. I packed them all. Jennifer could figure out how to cook for her own family. Or they could order takeout with the money they were saving by not having to support me anymore. Not that they'd been doing much of that anyway. By 9 o'clock, I had everything important loaded into my car. The rest, furniture that no longer fit, books that had been boxed up in the basement, Christmas decorations I wasn't allowed to use, could stay. Let them deal with it. I sat down at the kitchen table one last time and wrote a note. "Marcus and Jennifer, I've decided to make some changes. The cleaning is done, as requested. Don't worry about me. I'm exactly where I need to be. Eleanor." I almost signed it Mom out of habit, then decided against it. Mothers get invitations to their grandchildren's birthday celebrations. Cleaning ladies get dismissive text messages. I left the note propped against the salt shaker Robert had made in his workshop, the one Jennifer always complained was too rustic for her taste. Then I walked through the house one last time, turning off lights, making sure the doors were locked. My phone buzzed as I loaded the last box into my trunk. A text from my sister Rose in Phoenix. "How's the birthday party?" I typed back, "Plans changed. I'll call you tomorrow." At 10:47 p.m., I pulled out of the driveway and drove toward the highway, leaving behind 25 years of memories and 8 years of slowly disappearing. I didn't look back at the house. Some doors, once you close them, should stay that way. The interstate was quiet, just long-haul truckers and night shift workers heading to jobs that started before dawn. I had no destination in mind, just a need to drive until I figured out where I belonged. The radio played soft jazz, and for the first time in years, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Freedom. Behind me, my family was probably raising toasts to Tyler's future, completely unaware that I'd just reclaimed mine. I drove for 4 hours before exhaustion forced me to stop at a truck stop outside Cincinnati. The place was brightly lit and surprisingly busy for 3 in the morning, filled with drivers grabbing coffee and gas station sandwiches. I felt invisible again, but this time, it was liberating rather than lonely. The teenage clerk at the counter looked like Tyler might in a few years. Same dark hair, same easy smile. When he handed me my coffee, he said, "Drive safe." "Ma'am, it's a crazy night to be traveling alone." "Sometimes crazy is exactly what you need," I told him. I found a quiet corner table and pulled out my phone. 17 missed calls from Marcus, 12 from Jennifer, and a string of increasingly frantic text messages. The progression was predictable. Confusion, then anger, then panic, then bargaining. 11:43 p.m. "Mom, where are you? Your car's gone." 12:15 a.m. "This isn't funny. Call me back right now." 1:22 a.m. "Mom, we're worried. Please just let us know you're safe." 2:35 a.m. "Whatever we did, we can fix it. Just come home." Home. Interesting how that word appeared only after I was gone. I turned off my phone without responding. They could worry for a while. Maybe worry would teach them something that 8 years of taking me for granted hadn't. The truck stop had a rack of travel brochures. Mammoth Cave, Dollywood, Great Smoky Mountains. Places I'd wanted to visit when Robert was alive. Trips we'd always planned for someday before cancer stole our somedays. I grabbed a handful and spread them on the table like tarot cards. A woman at the next table was watching me with curiosity. She looked to be about my age, silver hair pulled back in a practical bun, wearing a University of Kentucky sweatshirt. "Running away from home?" she asked with a smile that suggested she'd done the same thing herself once or twice. "More like running toward something," I said. "I'm just not sure what yet." She introduced herself as Margaret Coleman, a retired teacher driving back to Louisville after visiting her daughter in Atlanta. "Worst mistake I ever made," she said, "was moving in with my kids after my husband died. Took me 2 years to get my life back." We talked until sunrise, two women who'd forgotten we existed outside our roles as mothers and grandmothers. Margaret told me about the apartment she'd found in Louisville's Highlands neighborhood, close to coffee shops and bookstores, and the kind of life she'd wanted when she was 20 but hadn't dared to pursue. "The hardest part," she said, as we prepared to leave, "isn't starting over. It's forgiving yourself for waiting so long to do it." She gave me her number and made me promise to call when I figured out where I was headed. "Women our age have to stick together," she said. "The world tries to convince us we're invisible after 60. It's up to us to prove them wrong." I spent the morning driving through Kentucky's rolling hills, thinking about visibility and invisibility, about the difference between being needed and being wanted. By noon, I'd made my decision. I stopped at a bank in Lexington and opened a new checking account with the money I'd saved. Then I found a real estate office and started looking at rental properties. Nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom apartment where I could think clearly without the weight of other people's expectations pressing down on me. The realtor was a cheerful woman named Beth, who didn't ask why a woman my age was apartment hunting alone. She showed me 3 places before we found the right one. A small apartment above a bakery on Main Street with hardwood floors and windows that faced east toward the morning sun. "The baker downstairs makes the best cinnamon rolls in Lexington," Beth said, as I signed the lease. "Fair warning, the smell will ruin you for grocery store pastries forever." I paid first month's rent and security deposit in cash, using the money I'd saved while pretending to be grateful for room and board in my own house. The apartment wouldn't be available until the weekend, so I checked into a nearby hotel for the rest of the week. That evening, I finally turned my phone back on. 43 missed calls, dozens of text messages, and 3 voicemails from Marcus that progressed from angry to desperate. The last message, left at 2 a.m., was different from the others. "Mom, I know you're angry about the birthday dinner. I should have made sure you were invited. We should have invited you. Please call me back. I'm scared something happened to you." For a moment, I wavered. He sounded like the little boy who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, the teenager who'd cried in my arms when his father died. But then I remembered the text message that started all this, the casual dismissal, the 8 years of slowly erasing me from my own life. I typed a single response: "I'm safe. Don't look for me." Then I turned off the phone again and went to sleep in my first bed that was truly mine in nearly a decade, dreaming of cinnamon rolls and morning sunshine and the radical act of choosing myself for once. Marcus found me through old-fashioned detective work and sheer determination. I discovered this when Claire, the bakery owner, knocked on my apartment door Friday morning with a concerned expression and a fresh croissant. "Eleanor, there's a man downstairs asking about you. Says he's your son. He's been calling every hotel and rental office in Lexington since yesterday, showing your picture around." I sighed, accepting the croissant and the inevitable. I'd had 5 peaceful days to settle in, 5 days of morning coffee without interference and evenings spent reading in my new chair by the window. It had been lovely while it lasted. "Tell him I'll be down in 10 minutes, I said. Marcus was pacing in front of the bakery when I came downstairs, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His usually neat hair was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. When he saw me, his expression cycled rapidly through relief, anger, and something that might have been genuine remorse. "Mom." He stopped pacing and just stood there, looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time in years. "You look good." I did look good, actually. 5 days of sleeping in my own bed, eating when I was hungry instead of when dinner was scheduled, and making my own choices had already started to show. I was wearing the blue sweater I'd bought for myself last Christmas, but never worn because Jennifer had said the color was too bold for someone my age. "Thank you," I said. "You look tired. I've been driving around Kentucky for 2 days, stopping at every town between here and Cincinnati, asking if anyone had seen you." He ran a hand through his hair. "Do you have any idea how many small towns there are in this state?" "I imagine you do now," I said mildly. "Would you like some coffee?" Claire makes excellent coffee. We found a table by the window, and I watched Marcus struggle with where to begin. He'd always been uncomfortable with emotional conversations, even as a child. After his father died, I'd had to teach him that feelings were meant to be expressed, not buried under busy schedules and practical concerns. "Mom," he said finally, "why didn't you tell me you were unhappy?" I stirred cream into my coffee, buying time to frame my answer carefully. "When was the last time you asked how I was doing, Marcus? I mean, really asked, when you had time to listen to the answer?" He opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. I could see him thinking back, trying to remember recent conversations that went beyond logistics and schedules. "I ask you all the time," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "You ask if I need anything from the store. You ask if I can watch Tyler when you and Jennifer go out. You ask if I can make dinner for company." I took a sip of coffee, watching his face. "You don't ask how I'm feeling about living in my own house as a guest. It's not like that, isn't it?" I interrupted gently. "Marcus, whose name is on the deed to that house?" Silence. He stared into his coffee cup, and I could see the moment he realized he'd never actually thought about the legal reality of our living situation. "Yours," he admitted quietly. "And whose furniture fills the living room?" "Jennifer's." "Whose bedroom am I sleeping in?" "The basement guest room." His voice was getting smaller with each answer. "So help me understand," I said, leaning forward slightly, "how I became a guest in my own home?" Marcus was quiet for a long time, processing 8 years of assumptions he'd never examined. When he finally looked up, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "We never meant for it to happen that way," he said. "When we moved in, Tyler was only 4. Jennifer was overwhelmed. I was working 18-hour days trying to get the business off the ground. You just stepped in and took care of everything. You made it look so easy." "It wasn't easy, Marcus. It was love. I know that now." He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "But somewhere along the way, we started taking that love for granted. We stopped seeing you as a person with your own needs and started seeing you as the help?" He winced. "Yeah, as the help." We sat in silence while he processed this revelation. Outside the window, Lexington was coming to life, people walking to work, students heading to campus, normal Friday morning activity in a city that was slowly becoming home. "Mom," Marcus said suddenly, "I need you to know that Jennifer's been crying for 3 days straight. Not the dramatic crying she does when she wants something. Real crying. She keeps saying she didn't realize that she never meant to push you out of your own life." I considered this information carefully. Jennifer's tears could be genuine remorse or strategic manipulation. With her, it was often hard to tell the difference. "What does she want from me, Marcus?" "She wants you to come home. We both do." He leaned forward earnestly. "But not the way things were before. We want to make changes, real changes." "Such as?" He was quiet for a moment, clearly struggling to come up with specifics rather than vague promises. "We could convert the main floor office into a bedroom for you," he said finally. "You shouldn't be sleeping in the basement. And Jennifer wants to give you back control of the kitchen. She admits she's a terrible cook, and we've all been eating frozen dinners since you left." "And family events, birthdays, holidays, decisions that affect the household?" His face flushed with shame. "You'll be included in everything. I promise. No more last-minute plans that exclude you. No more treating you like childcare instead of Tyler's grandmother." I finished my coffee while considering his offer. Part of me wanted to believe that change was possible, that 8 years of ingrained patterns could be broken with good intentions and conscious effort. But I'd learned something important in my 5 days of independence. I liked making my own choices. I liked eating dinner at 7:30 instead of 6 because it suited my schedule better. I liked watching the news without Jennifer commenting on how depressing it was. I liked the quiet. "Marcus," I said gently, "I appreciate the apology, and I believe you mean well, but I'm not coming back." His face crumpled. "Why not? If we make changes, if we treat you the way we should have been treating you all along." "Because this isn't about punishment," I said. "It's about finally living my own life." I reached across the table and took his hand. "Son, I'm 67 years old. For 25 years, I was Robert's wife. For 8 years, I've been your live-in babysitter and housekeeper. For the first time in my adult life, I get to just be Eleanor. But we need you," he said, and his voice cracked like it had when he was 14 and afraid of being alone. You needed who I was to you, I corrected. You needed someone to take care of the details so you didn't have to. That person served her purpose, Marcus. It's time for me to figure out who I am when I'm not taking care of everyone else. He squeezed my hand tightly. Will you at least think about it? Will you consider visiting? I'll think about visits, I said. But Marcus, you need to understand. I'm not coming back to live in your house. This is my home now. After he left, promising to call before driving back to Columbus, I sat in the bakery for another hour, watching people come and go. Some looked stressed and hurried, some looked content, some looked lost. For the first time in years, I looked like someone who knew exactly where she belonged. Jennifer arrived the next morning with Tyler in tow, both of them looking like they'd been up all night planning their approach. I opened my apartment door to find them standing in my hallway with the careful expressions people wear when they're about to deliver a rehearsed speech. Eleanor, Jennifer began, we need to talk. We? I looked at Tyler, who had the grace to look embarrassed. I asked him to come, Jennifer said quickly. I thought you might be more receptive if Tyler was here. The manipulation was so obvious it was almost insulting. Using my grandson as leverage in a negotiation, assuming I'd be unable to maintain my boundaries if faced with his disappointed face. Tyler, I said, would you mind waiting downstairs while your mother and I have a conversation? He looked relieved. Sure, Grandma. I'll just get some coffee or something. After he left, I invited Jennifer into my apartment. She looked around with the same appraising expression she'd used when redecorating my living room, cataloging everything that was different from her aesthetic preferences. It's very cozy, she said, which in Jennifer speak meant small and outdated. It suits me perfectly, I replied. Coffee? She shook her head and sat on my small couch, crossing her legs and assuming the posture she used for difficult conversations. Back straight, hands folded, expression carefully neutral. Eleanor, I owe you an apology. I waited. Apologies from Jennifer usually came with conditions and expectations attached. I realize that we've been thoughtless about including you in family decisions. The birthday dinner was inexcusable, and I take full responsibility for that oversight. Oversight, I repeated. Is that what we're calling it? Her composure slipped slightly. I know you're angry. I'm not angry, Jennifer. I'm done. The blunt statement seemed to catch her off guard. She'd clearly prepared for anger, tears, demands for better treatment. She hadn't prepared for calm indifference. You can't be done, she said. You're family. Am I? I sat down across from her. Jennifer, in the 8 years you've lived in my house, how many times have you asked about my day, my interests, my friends? How many times have we had a conversation that wasn't about Tyler's schedule or Marcus's work or what you needed me to do for the household? She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. I could see her mentally searching through 8 years of interactions, looking for evidence of genuine interest in me as a person. We've been busy, she said finally, between work and Tyler and maintaining the house. You've been busy, I agreed, too busy to notice that I was disappearing. You weren't disappearing. You were part of everything. I was useful for everything, I corrected. There's a difference. She was quiet for a moment, and I could see her recalibrating her approach. Jennifer was nothing if not adaptable when she wanted something. I know I haven't been the daughter-in-law you deserved, she said, and for the first time, her voice carried genuine emotion rather than strategic vulnerability. I was so focused on